tuned for a very special program. I'm Duncan Campbell, and we're going to have a special Living Dialogues program with members of Rising Voices, Indigenous Wisdom, and Climate Change.
The 4 questions that the UN asked the body of 3,000 scientists around the world: is climate change real? Is there a human fingerprint on it? Are there things we can do to mitigate the causes of climate change? And how do we adapt to those conditions that we can't mitigate? And those answers of the first 2 are purely scientific. I mean, where do you put the thermometer to get the global warming temperature of the entire globe? It's a lot of science involved, and we trust that the scientists have done that in peer-reviewed ways and have come up with good answers. So is there a human fingerprint on the pollution, on the causes of climate change? Yes, there is. The greenhouse gas emissions are piling up, causing the planet to warm. Are there things to mitigate? That gets very political because that involves vested interests of those in the production of greenhouse gas emissions, and a lot of denial took place in that realm. But the last question, physical scientists, climate scientists were asked about how will we adapt to it? What are the human behavioral strategies? And that's not their area. They've got nothing in that realm. But they came back to the UN and they said, you need to go home and talk to your local people and talk to your indigenous peoples to see how we can begin to adapt to a changing, very rapidly changing world.
And when you look at the definition of science in general, our ancestors have been practicing science for thousands of years. The descendants that exist today wouldn't be here today if we weren't able to transfer that knowledge, duplicate, hypothesize, experiment.
Some of these communities who've been living there for thousands of years before anyone else ever came, they were there and learning how to live in this environment. And as it's changed over those centuries, they've continued to adapt to it. And so how have they done so? Why not turn to them for some of those answers?
They understand that part of the problems we've created in the world is this sort of misguided notion that there's one best way of doing things, that there's one answer to all problems. People don't want the best practices, they want the best practice. The miseducative dichotomy of the Western tradition, where we think that there's some tension, some conflict between nature and culture, is something that is completely foreign to indigenous thinking, to native thinkers. We understand that our cultures were emergent out of these symbiotic relationships. If we could reconnect the biological, the ecological diversity of the planet with the cultural diversity that we need so that we can live well in those places, I think we could address many of the most pressing problems we face on the planet today.
What we're trying to do is to create a new vocabulary that brings Western science and indigenous knowledge together on the same playing field, same credibility, same legitimacy, and now develop together a language that allows us to communicate this shared knowledge.
And we move in different paths and different streams, but guess what? Those streams merge, they converge, and when they do, something new can emerge out of that.
Rising Voices is different because there is a sharing of knowledge across a wide range of indigenous communities.
It's an opportunity for people from many different backgrounds to come together to have a conversation about how they might build partnerships.
And we're learning about what's happening from the people that it's happening to. We're not just reading about it or watching it on TV. And it makes you want to do more, to be more engaged.
What have been best practices with other cultures? Many communities know their culture, but they don't necessarily know all the practices that have worked in other climates and other environments. So sharing of that sort is what Rising Voices has allowed.
And so what they're doing is actually very proactive community-based, looking to solve problems, and doing it in a way that's a guiding lesson and model for people in other places, locations, for us to all learn from. And so it's folks like that are coming together here.
And there's a positivity about the conversation and an encouraging manner that you feel inspired.
Bringing not only this holistic approach, but bringing a new level of understanding.
And I think that's one of the things I really like about this Rising Voices. We are talking to each other and we're starting to actually understand both sides, but also both sides are learning as a result.
All adaptation is local, and having it done on the micro scale in backyards and in communities, that is where the greatest resilience is going to come for the entire community and I think for the nation. By this I don't mean any one of the Indian nations, but for the United States.
I think the major component is, as a young person, I think is, when I listen into these conversations, I have incredible admiration and respect for elders, experts, and leaders in the area. They know what they're talking about. They have an incredible depth and breadth of knowledge that I can't even begin to comprehend.
In ancient Hawaii, we had this notion that we are all ohana. We are all related. We're in this together and we are connected. Only by caring about each other can we survive.
I see a collaboration of different mindsets that normally would not have a conversation outside of the rooms, commenting about this urgent problem, going back and forth, collaboration. It's an amazing thing that normally would not have happened under any other circumstance. And why I choose to participate is this is an opportunity that not very many youth will get to choose, will get to participate in.
Hello, I'm Sage Nishida, and I'm working on the Includes project.
Where are we?
Where are we? Where are we?
Love Farm, right?
We're at the Love Farm in
Punaka'a. We've just been measuring out the area where we're going to put the gardens, the big food forest. We're gonna put 3 right now, but maybe 4. We haven't decided because there might be buildings. But we've just measured out the layout so we know how big the gardens are gonna be.
And we just finished installing the soil moisture probes. There's 4 different depths, so we can get the different readings at different depths of how much moisture is in the soil. We have 90s, we have 60, 30, and 10 centimeters. And then we're gonna come check these regularly and see what the moisture in the soil is like.
Yourselves in your memory and hearts through the moments that we've spent coming together here, and reflect upon if you were to give an essential part of the experience to your loved ones, your ohana, your family, your friends, in only 10 syllables, what would you say to them? How many of you still say something like, let's kill 2 birds with 1 stone? You say that to each other, right? How many of us are killing birds with stones or holding them in the bushes or in the hands? But where will those new sayings come from that we need in order to thrive, in order to do the adaptation that we're called to do? We need to come up with them ourselves. And there's ways of saying this new information that we want to, the old information we want to make new to new ears.
Try to open yourself, research, become more acquainted with it so that you can start to understand the spiritual experience better.
Be one.
Being
clean.
Move
as one machine.
Move as one machine, there you go. So what is it like when you're doing your work in the world and you're trying to get that message across to someone and they're quite not hearing you? It might just take 1 syllable change.
Whole soul, there is no one mountain or sea.
Whole soul, there is no one mountain